Saudi Arabia says it's resuming oil shipments through a key Red Sea route. It suspended exports through the Bab el-Mandeb Strait 10 days ago after it says two of its vessels were attacked by Houthi rebels. Houthi fighters insisted they attacked a Saudi Emirati coalition warship and not a commercial vessel. Well, aid agencies, meanwhile, are demanding a ceasefire in Yemen after airstrikes in the port city of Hodeidah. The Red Cross says at least 55 people were killed. The World Health Organization wants to administer cholera vaccines to 500,000 people in the north of the country. It says there's a risk of another outbreak. Mohammed Ador has more from neighboring Djibouti.
They'd come to buy fish, and then the warplanes came. Dozens were killed.
We went to the hospital right away and found a disaster, a criminal disaster. There are 26 people dead, 26 martyred, and we counted 35 to 40 wounded. That's not even counting the many wounded we sent to private hospitals, and we're still nursing the wounded and dealing with those killed.
A second airstrike at the busy market caused even more casualties, catching rescue workers and first responders unawares.
I was saving people when the second airstrike happened. Its impact and shrapnel hit my face, making me bleed a little. I couldn't feel my hand because of the shrapnel.
The fish market is just 20 meters from the gates of Al Thawra Hospital, the largest and one of just a handful of medical facilities still open in the city of Hodeidah. Both the Saudi and UAE-led coalition, as well as Houthi fighters, deny carrying out the attacks. They happened as the UN Special Envoy for Yemen announced he will host talks between the government and Houthi rebels in Geneva on the 6th of September.
These consultations will provide the opportunity for the parties, among other things, to discuss the framework for negotiations, to agree on relevant confidence-building measures, and specific plans for moving the process forward.
Next month's planned talks could come too late for some. The World Health Organization is warning Yemen could be on the brink of a new cholera epidemic with even more deaths than up to now. The WHO is calling for a ceasefire in northern Yemen to allow for a vaccination campaign to be carried out.
We have requested, as the UN, 3 days of tranquility associated with the first oral cholera vaccine campaign across August 4th, 5th and 6th in the north of the country. You'll recall that we were able to start OCV campaigns in the south of the country previously, but we've never before been able to do it in the north. And we are planning with almost 3,000 health workers to vaccinate more than 500,000 individuals above the age of 1 year.
The world's worst humanitarian crisis may be about to become dramatically worse. The UN humanitarian coordinator in Yemen is warning that any further attacks in Hodeidah could be catastrophic, with the human toll extending far beyond the limits of the city. More than 75% of food imports into Yemen go through the port of Hodeidah, which is also essential for imports such as fuel, medicine, and other essential supplies. Mohammed Adou, Al Jazeera, Djibouti.
Now, James Farwell is a senior fellow at the Middle East Institute in Washington, D.C., and he says previous ceasefire talks failed because of the complexity of the war in Yemen.
Well, the last round they had with the United Nations was a couple of years ago. The UN has been pressuring the parties to come to a ceasefire. The attacks today that killed 55 and wounded 144, coming on top of a war that has killed 10,000 people and arguably 50,000 children have died of disease and starvation, is putting a lot of pressure. When the United Arab Emirates and the Saudis launched their attack on Hodeidah, they overconfidently predicted they would be able to oust the Houthis. They outnumbered the Houthis. It hasn't worked out that way. The problem that you have is an impasse in which the Houthis have a strategic interest in holding Hodeidah. They've been accused of pilfering supplies that are intended for civilians. On the other hand, the Saudis and the UAE are finding the fighting much tougher to go. And I think that the problem that you have is the one that we have had, which is that you have parties with different interests and driven by very emotional reasons.